Also, we should also have time for questions at the end. And within this as well, please stick to professional language and behavior only during this class. And then a brief background on NKA is over 15 years ago, a group of dedicated volunteers came together to create a lifelong learning program in Pocatello in partnership with Idaho State University. So we're also excited to be able to be with ISU and AARP here today. And the volunteers looked at many different models and decided to create new knowledge adventures that had these key components. So affordable access, volunteer governance, volunteer instructors, active engagement of the community, and membership to provide diverse, high quality educational experiences and fun. And now here we are in the fall of 2020, and NKA Treasure Valley is offering online classes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're the only NKA group in Idaho offering online classes. So it's very exciting that we can still have the classes and still learn and grow. And then a brief background on Dennis, who we'll be learning from today, is Dennis Rockwood is a Seattle native and retired high school marketing and DECA teacher at Inglemoor High School. His students and school were recognized with 5 first place in the nation awards. Prior to 16 years of teaching, he spent 23 years as a sales and marketing professional. And Dennis relocated to Boise in May 2017 with his wife Sharon to be closer to his daughter, son-in-law, and 2 grandsons. As a volunteer with AARP Idaho, Dennis continues to use his skills in helping people learn about fraud prevention, and what to do when you are a victim of fraud. So again, we're also excited that you're all here today, and I will hand it over to Dennis.
All right, thank you, Bethany. And I really want to welcome everyone here. I wish that we could meet live. It's always nice as a former teacher to be able to see your students, but I think some of you either have students or you have children who have students that are going through this process as we're speaking here. Not everybody does really well virtual learning. I loved it because I was getting my continuing ed credits that way, and I found that I could do my work at midnight or 11 o'clock at night or whatever. So it made it pretty handy for me. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. But what I want to do is I'm going to do some screen sharing here, and I want to bring up a couple documents that that I think that hopefully you may have, and you may have had time to print them. And if not, that's okay. So I'm going to click on the screen sharing. And I don't know if you can see this box, but I got a whole kinds of stuff here. Let's see, I got that one, I got that one, I got that one. Yeah, let's try this one here. Yeah, let's try this one. Okay, this particular document here, can you see that, Bethany? Okay, so this particular document here was sent out by AARP Boise, and I think it's a pretty good document. So I don't know if you had a chance to print that or not, but if you don't, we can get it to you. I particularly like this particular page or document because on the second page, well, actually right here, it's got a couple good phone numbers that I think that you might want to have. I have another document that I sent you yesterday. I BCC'd everyone that was on here, but you have a do not call list. I think that's a kind of a key one. It doesn't fit perfectly well with identity theft presentations, but it's a darn good one to utilize. So if you've got that, great. If not, if you get a chance to print that, you'll have that phone number there. All right, and then also on the second page, it has, I think, a pretty nice discussion about your credit and freezing your credit. And I will probably mention this to you later on, that I encourage all of you to have your credit frozen. And I just want you to know right at the top here that when you do that, you're not affecting your credit rating at all. You're just making it much more difficult for someone to open an account, say a credit card, or buy a car, which do fall in line with identity theft, because the credit agency will not accept that. All right, so that's something for you to think about, and those numbers there are good. and they are real, and you should do this. This is one of those things you might want to do. The latter part down at the very bottom, it says that you can get your credit report free. I would imagine some of you have done that and taken a look at your credit report. Again, it doesn't cost anything anymore. A couple of years ago, I think they took that price out of it. I think Boise or in Idaho, it was maybe $6 at that time to get your credit report. It's free now. So I would encourage all of you to do that. And you can actually do that 3 times a year. And here it's probably talking about 1 time a year. But if there's 3 credit reporting agencies out there, and you can get 1 from each one of them. So if you can put it in your file to order your credit report, like every 4 months, you'll have that. And what that'll do is tell you, again, we'll have your credit rate, or won't have your credit score on there, but what it'll have is any action that's taken place on your credit report. Nice things to know. Nice things to know. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And then I'm going to go back to screen share again. And let's see, what else do I got here? ID theft and scams. ID theft and scams. 099. Okay, survey links, we got that. Oh, wow. Well, I can't see that. Oh, well. Okay, so the other one I wanted to show you, which I don't see it on my screen share here, is yeah, it's the one sheet that I sent you yesterday. And the back page of that is all the phone numbers that are still live, and they're in for Boise or Idaho. And I think that those are the ones that you're going to have. If you've got that, because I sent it out yesterday, then you won't have to scramble around with a pencil and write these phone numbers down. I will mention some of them, and if I remember, I will tell you that it's on that sheet that I sent you. Anyway, and that sheet, I think it's called 2020 Fraud Presentation Identity Theft. It's got some things about identity theft on one page, and on the back page, it's got all the phone numbers here. So here we go. I'm going to start this slideshow. Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to welcome you here. And identity theft is well, it's the #1 scam out there to avoid. And most of the scams, a lot of the scams really are leading towards identity theft. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. And so what we're going to try to do in the time we have here is we're going to spend a very short time on what is identity theft and how it happens. I got several examples that go through with you. Not all the examples that are out there, but some. All right, and these are the most kind of broad categories of identity theft. And then really, I would like to spend some time on probably the one question that everybody will have is when they do have their identity stolen is, what do I do now? And that really is the same with about every scam that you follow yourself into, or you know somebody who has been scammed, and I'm sure that's the case here. You've either had a scam happen to you, you've been a victim, or you know someone who's been a victim. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to avoid these. It's not impossible to avoid them, but it's sometimes hard. And as I mentioned at the very top to Bethany, there's a really good chance that all of you, whether you know it or not, have had your identification, you've had identity theft already happen to you. It doesn't take a whole lot to do that. With all the things we do with social media and all things we put out there on our computers at one time or another, that they've got a hold of it. Okay, so we're going to go flying through here. We're going to open up this drapery here and kind of expose identity theft. Identity theft, very simply, is any unauthorized use of your personal financial information to commit a fraud. And there's a legal difference between fraud and scamming. For our purposes, we'll probably just go back and forth and use them interchangeably. Fraud is a legal term, and a scam is kind of what we've adopted it as part of the nomenclature of the whole fraud business. What kind of information? Well, they obviously want your name and address, which pretty much is easy to get off of the internet. And all I would need to do is put your name in there, and I'd probably get an address and a phone number. And if I wanted to pay a little bit of money, I could find a few more things out about you. or account numbers for, like, for example, your credit cards, your bank accounts, and medical insurance. I want to highlight that medical insurance. A couple years ago, I think the government finally got smart and issued out new Medicare cards for those folks who are involved with Medicare. It was no longer our Social Security number. So, in fact, I had to use it a couple of days ago to pick up a prescription because my Walgreens pharmacy hadn't updated their sources, so I couldn't pick up this one drug because I didn't have my Medicare card. Told her, I said, well, I don't carry this thing around. So I had to go back home and get it and bring it back. I got my prescription. In many cases, scam artists and hackers can ruin your good name. And that's kind of what they're about, and your credit record. And like some other scams, the identity theft scammers want to see you on the street homeless, and because they don't care. They have no feeling about you. They're in the business. They're good at what they do. Scamming and frauds in this country amount to about $50 billion. That's B for billion, and it's a growing industry. And identity theft is a big part of that. But they use the information to apply for credit, file your taxes, get medical services, and essentially take over your life. And the longer that they have your identity, the more they will get out of it. I also want you to know right at the top that scammers and fraudsters are in the business of selling your information to others who are in the fraud and scamming business. So pieces of information about you are worth money. Okay, here we go. Okay, come on, Drapes, you can do this. There we are. Okay. Identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America, and for obvious reason. Because most of us have our most valuable personal information, name, address, social security number, driver's license, credit card numbers, and they're available online. And these people are in the business 24/7, so they have all kinds of time to go after you. Even though there's millions of us, they can go through the data rather quickly. And these criminals are, and that's what they are, they're criminals, are having an easy time stealing it. And here's the key, and this is true, ID theft is preventable. Even with the hacking that's been taking place with businesses and banks and hotels and other kinds of places that you and I do business, where they're stealing credit cards and social security information. If you have some knowledge and you do the right planning and have awareness and are vigilant, you can keep it outside your door. Okay, so back again, these thieves will use your information to apply for credit, file taxes, or get medical services. And they can damage your credit status, cost you time and money to restore your good name. Truth in lending here, I've had my identity stolen twice, and I'll mention them briefly as we go through this, because they were different types of identity theft. I want you to know that over 18 million people in the United States have reported this last year, which is 7% of our total population. So that's how big this thing is. In Idaho, more specifically, ID theft is 13% of all reported scams and over $7 million in losses. So I wanted just to go through a few of these identity theft examples. And this first one is referred to in the business as synthetic ID theft. And it occurs when a thief pairs, in other words, match up legitimate social security number, your social security number, or mine, with fake personal information. So they have your social security number, but everything else attached to this is going to be fake. That could be name, address, and that sort of thing, birth date. And what will happen is the thief will try to apply for a credit card, and they may be refused because they need more information. Well, having simply applied for the credit card puts them on the scoreboard of actually going along the path of actually being able to secure a credit card. They may not get that particular credit card that they applied to, but now they can apply for other credit cards, and they will end up with a credit card eventually. Synthetic ID theft is happening quite often. So instead of stealing an existing identity, yours by name, they see the most valuable information is social security numbers of people who don't use credit. Now, if you see this at the very bottom, I stated that include infants and children. This is a fast-growing, most profitable for the scammer who steal an identity of a newborn. Now, you would think that, wow, how could that happen? Well, it hasn't been all that long. I think when you and I were born, we didn't have a social security name attached to our name. And I know that in my case, I got my first social security card about the time I was applying for my first job, around 16. About the same time as getting my driver's license in the state of Washington, of course. and so I just want you to know that infants, when a new child is born today, are given a social security number. And if you're a thief and you could steal that social security number, right? And then you can actually create a new person using their social security number, and you could tack on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And the child doesn't know it until they apply for a job, or they get a call from the police. It's happening all the time now. So my suggestion, if you have that one sheet that was sent out by AARP Boise about credit freeze, I would recommend that you put a freeze on your child's, if they're an infant, or strongly urge your children to put a credit freeze on their children. And that way they'll get notified about anybody who's trying to tap in or get an account. Because I think the last thing I want my grandchildren to do is inherit a debt that they didn't incur. All right. And so it all comes down to it takes a lot of time to get this off your back. Medical ID theft. Okay, now this is kind of interesting. If some of you, I would assume, have Medicare or Medicaid, and this is when someone steals your personal information, such as your name, social security number, Medicare number off of that card, or insurance information. And how do they get it? Well, they get it a number of different ways. They could do some dumpster diving. If you receive your bill on there, if you just throw away without maybe purging them or shredding them, and you probably shouldn't. You probably should keep a file on all your medical supplies. But they can use the health insurance information to see a doctor, to obtain prescriptions, and it's not just the scammers themselves that get involved with this. It's also doctors, real doctors, are involved in this, and they do this a number of different ways. In other words, fraud with the Medicare is probably one of the greatest identity thefts out there and frauds that exist out there. So this is the big one, and there's a couple of ways that you can check it. But a doctor can do this by issuing a bill to Medicare about a service that they provided for their patient, which they didn't do, but they get paid back by Medicare. And you may not even see it until a couple months later, or maybe they've got a way of doing it so you don't see it at all. Another way they could do it is if you had an injury that required some medical equipment, the doctor can also order you the equipment, and he'll pass on to Medicare that he's ordering this brand new high-tech piece of equipment that costs a little more than the older models. You may end up with the older model and they get the difference. So I just wanted you to be aware that Medicare medical identity theft is a big, big thing out there. And one of the things I'd recommend that you do here on if you have Medicare or Medicaid is I receive every month, from my supplemental, which is United Healthcare, I receive a lot of pages, and it goes through all of my things, about 8 pages on my medical side and about the same number of pages on my prescription side. And I want you to know it's a very boring reading, but it's one of those things. It's like getting a financial statement from your bank, your credit card. You need to go over this. You need to look at it, and you need to look for things that you don't recall as happening. And then you need to call, the phone number's there, and check on that. Now, that's happened to me a couple times, and I call and I find out, oh, because what they do is they send out my blood work somewhere else. It could be, and the home office of that company that does the blood work could be located in Phoenix, Arizona. So I get this charge, and I say, God, I didn't do that. So I will call them and find out, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. But I want you to know it's much better to hear that than to hear we don't have any record of it. So you have to be really diligent about looking at all these. You got to consider your Medicare and Medicaid forms and all medical forms from your doctor's office or from Medicare or Medicaid as being things like financial statements, and look at them and check, make sure every one of those line items are real and that that's something that you have incurred. Because fraud is big out there, and this is an easy one. And this is a very profitable one for scammers. All right. Child identity theft. I just went over this a little bit, but again, I just want you to know that children that don't have any credit history, identity thieves see this as a blank slate. And like I've mentioned, this is the one case that is probably the most profitable for these folks, because it could be years of utilizing that child's identity without anybody knowing. Years can go by, and until some action's taken in terms of using the child's, really officially using the child's social security number, applying for a job or doing this, or applying for, for example, loan credit for going to college, for them to go to college. I fill out a lot of financial forms for both of my kids in order to provide some financial aid for them, and I had really detailed report. Can you imagine having that come back and saying that your child owes, $6,000? You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that. It became the fastest growing sector of identity theft. Okay, tax identity theft. Now this can happen a number of ways, but your social security number is the key to many things, including your tax return. So I just want you to go back to 2012, and I want you to ask yourself, how much did you owe the government in taxes, or how much did the government owe you as for a refund? So this stuff kind of works like this. You get a call, and it's from someone who's claiming to be from the IRS or Social Security, and they're telling you that you owe $3,500 based on your 2015 tax return. And of course, at that point in time, I don't think you remember what your taxes were at that point in time. And that you have 48 hours to pay this, and they'll tell you to pay it by different kinds of cards and wires and transfers and that. And if you don't do that, they're going to send out the sheriff to arrest you and take you to jail. Now, I don't know about you, but your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, and you're paying attention. And so they've given you a reason to be scared. They've given you a reason to do this quickly, and they're going to hound you until you have done this. So that's one way. Okay, now answer to that is just to hang up on them, because the IRS is not going to do that to you. Another way is they will submit your taxes before you. This happened in 2012 to me. So we submitted our taxes in March, had to wait for these things called 1099s. Some of you know what a 1099 is. If you have investments, you have to wait for them to send you the 1099 so that you can put it down as dividends or whatever it happens to be. Well, I had to wait until I got them. And I got them late, even though I called. So I submitted it the next day for my taxes. And I got a letter about 2 or 3 weeks later from the IRS. Yes, the IRS will send you a letter saying that my taxes had already been taken in and the refund had already gone out. Now, what I found out later was that the IRS had their budget cut by a third for that year, and that they didn't have the resources to do the kind of due diligence on tax returns. And 500 checks had gone to the same address, and mine was one of them. Now, I know that would probably tear your hair out, tore my hair out, but it took my wife and I about 12 months to get our identity back from that, because we had to prove who we were. We had to reapply for our Social Security refund. It was a refund that year. And so I just want you to know that these things do happen. Even today, the IRS has got they have much more limited resources than they did in 2012, thanks to our Congress and legislature who keeps cutting their budget. So when someone uses your Social Security number to file for a tax refund or to apply for a job, that's identity theft. Now, some of these folks do use your Social Security number, and you know that when you apply for a job, you don't have to necessarily show your Social Security number on the application, but once you have been hired, you need to show that. And so that was where this number can come from. And they use your Social Security number, but with the synthetic theft, that they make up a different name. Criminal ID theft. Now, someone possesses stolen information, right? And here they come down to name, address, driver's license, and they can provide that information to police when arrested or pulled over. So I want you to imagine a situation where you're home, haven't done anything wrong, been following all the rules, and someone had committed a crime out there, maybe an armed robbery, right? But on their driver's license, they have your name and birth date and address. And so the police are coming to you. And it's really difficult for the police to recognize that it's criminal identity theft at the outset. This is going to put you in a kind of real awkward situation. They can provide that information to police when they're arrested or pulled over, and they keep going, particularly if it's a ticket, in a speeding ticket. But you're the one that's going to end up paying for that later down the road. I had a case a couple years ago, given a class in Boise on fraud, and she had mentioned that she had lost her purse a couple days ago. And I said, okay, what did you do immediately after that? She says, well, I haven't done anything yet. Well, I had one booklet left from the FCC about making a plan, and I handed it to her, and I asked her to turn to page 9, whatever the page number was. And there was a list there of all the things that you should be doing once you feel that you have had your identity stolen. So having a plan is really key here. And I think she was a little bit embarrassed. I told her not to be embarrassed, just to take action. She needed to take action. She needed to take action really quick. Because in that purse, she had her driver's license, her credit cards, she wasn't carrying her Social Security number, but she was carrying her Medicare card. And so, hard. So doing it like this, it implicates the victim, which that was her, or in my case, myself, an innocent person in the theft crime. And you can see what you see down here. This guy's putting a picture in a passport. Mail identity theft. This is known as dumpster diving. Identity thieves will rifle through the mail looking for cash or checks, pre-approved credit cards, personal information. And most recently, all of us, or most of us, received a stimulus check. And thank goodness, most of you probably received your stimulus check delivered directly to your bank account. Well, there was millions of us who had gone ahead and filled in the 2018-2019 tax form, sent it in, but we checked off the box that we want the money to go forward, pay it forward. In other words, have the refund go forward to the next year. That was my case. So I didn't receive anything direct deposit. So I kept following that link, trying to figure out, I wonder if and when I'm going to get mine. So it did come, and it came in the mail. So I want you to know that as soon as that process was made available, scammers were absolutely on it, either dumpster diving, looking at your mailbox, or emailing you, telling you ways of getting your check faster and easier. And of course, a lot of those wanted you to pay a little bit of money for that service, or provide them with some information. And some of you may have gotten those phone calls or emails. So it's really real, and there's ways to avoid this, or at least report it. Now, you might think that around tax season, and when these checks and W-2s and all that are being mailed to people's homes, would become most common. They are. But I want you to know that tax theft, identity theft, and mail theft happen all year long, kind of like marriages. You know? A lot of marriages happen in December and June, but there's a lot of marriages going on in the other months as well. So just have to keep ourselves aware of this. All right. Now, outside these 6, there are other common ways to lose your identity. I am quite sure that some of you have received phone calls or emails saying something like, Mr. Rockwood, I want you to know that your account is safe and there's nothing wrong with your account right now. We just need to have you call and verify your account numbers to secure your account. Well, I want you to know that those are all scams, all of them. And so what you have to do is learn to hit the delete button, and you have to learn to hang up the telephone. Now, after you do that, you've got some breathing space. That's when you want to call the real company or real business that this particular message thinks it's indicating and ask them. And you're going to discover that no, your account is safe, and they would never call you for that in that way. But this is really common. And what they're after is your accounts, and they're going to steal not only your money, but your identity as well. Spam and phishing. I don't know if it's because I'm in the fraud business, but I get a ton of spam and phishing. And I would imagine some of you get your share as well. And phishing is just these things that kind of pop up ads and ways of gathering information, and they're ads that you don't want to have. Spam, same thing. You don't want to have. You didn't ask for this ad. They got it up there. The absolute best thing you can do is delete them and report them, but delete them for sure. If you click on them, as my wife says, you just went down the slippery slope again. And because I do on occasion, I get weak, and I'm sure you don't, but sometimes I do, and I'll click on this thing, and sure enough, it's a scam, because the next slide is it just becomes a scam. You can just tell. Card skimming. Now, I hope this never happened to you or never happens to you, but I know some folks that they go to the ATM machine to get out some money from their account, and they put the card in, and they take the card out, and they have their $100 or $200, and then in the next day or two, they see that they have taken out hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars from other ATMs around the city or whatever, or their number's been stolen, and their PIN. Card skimming is pretty popular, and there's supposed to be devices on the ATM machines now where you can tell that there's something layered in there that doesn't belong in there. It's very difficult for me anyway, to see this. So you just have to be very cautious and cognizant. And if there's anybody around you, even in cars, because apparently scammers can do this from a distance by sitting in a car, and they're getting your numbers that way. So, I got the habit of trying to hide myself in the ATM machine, actually crawl in when I need to be there. Or I wait until people are not away and there's no cars directly in line of the ATM machine. But this is another way. And of course, I've already mentioned this one, and that is they steal your wallet, or you've left your wallet or your purse laying somewhere. I know that in the grocery store, sometimes purses are left in the cart to go retrieve something on the next shelf over or something, and they come back and they don't discover it right away, but all of a sudden they realize their purse is gone. That happens that way. Or if you accidentally have left it on a park bench or any place like that where people can pick it up. Thankfully, I think there's a lot of honest people out there that will get your wallet back to you. But this reminds me of the one time that I was in a club in Seattle and working out, and I came back and I found that my lock on my locker was gone. And I started wondering, God, did I bring that lock in? I'm sure I did. So I first went to open up the locker, went to my wallet, pulled it out. All my credit cards were there. All my money was still there. It was like, what happened here? Well, it turned out by the time I got home, I got a call from the bank indicating that wanted to know if I had made charges on my credit card. And I said, well, what charges? So they went over a few. And you put a smile on your face here. Some of the charges were like $3.50 at McDonald's, $1.20 at a bus, $1,200 for a computer. Well, and so I, immediately canceled those things. And so I just want you to know that this type of theft is happening all the time. What rate? What's the percentage versus the others? I'm not sure. I'm sure you can find out. They'll have breakdowns of all these different kinds of ways of stealing your identity. But there's quite a few ways that you have to be careful, aren't there? Okay. Let's get to the good stuff here. All right. Okay. Preventing them. These are some of the basics. Some people will refer to this as common sense. Well, I think we all have common sense. But I want you to know common sense doesn't always protect you. Because there are times during the day, maybe during the month, or we have mood swings, whatever, that we are caught not using common sense. Securing your Social Security number is number one. Don't carry your Social Security number in your wallet. I stopped doing that years and years ago. I hope you're doing the same. When I started in the fraud business, I was still I'd carry my Social Security number around with me, my card, or excuse me, my Medicare card, because it has Social Security number. What I do is blacken it out, the number, and I would show that card to people who are attending the class, saying, so I carry this around, but you notice I don't have my Social Security number highlighted. Well, I only have my Social Security card now with me when it's necessary. For example, when I had to get my extended license, which I think everybody in the state of Idaho had probably done by now, I had to show all kinds of proof, and one of which is my Social Security card. You don't want to share personal information, and we do. We do share birth dates and Social Security numbers and bank account numbers when we think it's important because someone's asked for it. But I don't share my personal information with any stranger at all. So I would really encourage you not to do that. And because first off, if it is a stranger, you know who you're talking to. It's probably better to get off the phone and then call the real business. In other words, look it up and call the real business rather than responding to somebody who just called you on the telephone. Collect mail every day. Sometimes that's hard to do if you're on vacation, something you're going to go away for the weekend. But I've made a habit in Idaho of just placing a hold on my mail. Pretty easy to do. Post office here is very accommodating. They are a service. They do a great job, particularly when you're away from home for several days. And I think probably like myself, a lot of you have done some of your bill paying online now, which I think is a great way to do your bill paying. So then you really don't have to worry about it. And if you won't go with one step further, you can do your bill paying online and not receive anything in the mail in regard to that. And you'll see everything coming online, including the bill itself. You can do that. It's another layer of protection for yourself. The other thing is to use the security features on your mobile phone. And that's, how do you get in your phone? Can you just pick up your phone and start dialing, or do you have to put in a number to let you into your phone? And I think you can find that those numbers don't have to be short. They don't have to be 4 digits. They can be 6. But I can assure you, you want to remember this. You want to remember how you ever get in. And this is kind of a sad case. My brother's wife passed away years ago. And she had a cell phone, and she did most of the banking for the family. Another caution here. And so when Gary was looking at her phone, trying to get into the account so they could follow up and make sure that the bills were being paid. They couldn't get in. So he called and they wouldn't let him in. So, and I think he had to wait until he got phone calls from the agencies that were expecting money. And so I just want you to know that having that security information is really good, but maybe having it available in a safe place in case you're not around, or the person that you are caring for is not around, that you have a way to get into their cell phone. Again, this is probably falls under the title of common sense. I want you to know that it is common sense to review your credit card, bank account statements, and medical statements. But we don't always use common sense on every single incident. But you really do need to compare your receipts with your bank accounts and watch for unauthorized transactions. I do it every month. Sometimes I don't even wait for the statement to come. I'll go online and download it from there, because I have a routine now of doing a balancing every month and keeping a record of what I'm spending and what's coming in every month. I've been doing that now since I've been in Idaho, for sure. And I find it helpful. I found that I can find peace in doing that, and I don't have to worry about some of these other things happening. Also bought a shredder. I think shredders are cool. You don't have to buy an expensive shredder. And AARP has shredders out there on occasion. At least they had before the pandemic. And it was a wonderful service that they provided. You just bring down your boxes and stand there, and volunteers that there throw all your receipts into a machine, and ping, it's all shredded up and good. And so you might want to take advantage of those opportunities that happen around your community. And AARP is not the only one that does this. There's others, but so we got to wait for the other side of the pandemic probably, then we can do this. And this is going to prevent dumpster drivers from getting your personal information. And what I mean by dumpster divers is like, where do you put your paper information if you're going to throw it away? You put it in a recycle. You put it outside on the curb, right? Make it available for people to look in. I know that you're probably doing the best you possibly can. It's just that none of those things ever end up in my trash can. They end up being shredded. And so anything that has social security number or a financial number on there, or some reference to my Medicare, gets shredded. And it probably amounts to maybe 1 or 2 loads that go into the to my recycle can every Friday. Okay, personal information, store it in a safe place. I'd gone out and went to Costco and bought a $160 safe, I think. That was the price. A lot of money for a safe, but it's got it weighs a little bit, so I've got it in not a hidden place, but it's in a place where it would take some effort to get it out, and it has a combination of stuff. So I keep my personal information, whether it's credit cards, Medicare cards, passports, insurance information, those kinds of things there. My will is in there, and that sort of thing. And I make sure that key people in my life know the combination. I tried to get into it the other day, hadn't been into it for like 5 months. I'm trying to wrestle. What's the combination number? So we had to go to our backup plan where we put it. Install firewalls and virus detection software on your home computer. That is really key. I don't think people should have a computer or use it if they don't have some malware on their system that is protecting them. And of course, you can spend quite a bit of money on this, but there's some really good virus detection software that may come with your software on your computer, or you can install. I have my computer, like my car, gets a tune-up every year. I take it down to the same place, and they will wipe my computer for viruses and things, but they also update the software. They'll either check the software I have existing because the license on it is still going, or they'll install something new on my computer. And I think it's worth the, I don't know, $100, $150 to put that on every year. or yeah, every year. And so I do that. Same way I take my cars in to get it tuned up and oil changed and all those kind of things. There are two things that I actually covet in my lifetime in terms of those things, machines. One is my computer and the other is my car. I need them both to move forward. I don't know about you, but I think I have enough passwords to last a lifetime. And same thing with usernames. I remember when they first started coming out, I got one username, one password. Well, as a teacher, we had to change our password every 90 days because it was a district machine that server that we were plugged into. And they were hypersensitive, and I was less so. But I had to do it because I would get shut out. So I got in sort of the habit of changing my password. Well, I'm at the point now, about 20 years later of passwords, I think I'm running out of names. But Sharon and I put our heads together and we come up with these passwords. You do want to change your password that they can't identify. Particularly, you change your passwords with a company that you may know has been breached. And when I talk about the hacking that has gone on in the last several years, going back 6, 7 years and forward, of databases, you want to, every business that is associated with that, you want to have a different password, maybe even a different username. And so that is one of your chief protections for them not getting into you. You want to review your credit reports once a year. And I think I had mentioned that before we got started, that if you do this, and there are 3 reporting agencies out there, you can actually have your credit report checked once every 4 months. So instead of just once a year, and it's free, right, that you can be certain there then that no one has gotten into your account. Or what's really cool is that you can see who in fact has requested a credit rating on your account. And sometimes you can be surprised at who actually is checking your credit. But I also want you to know, if you do not only check them, but if you actually freeze your credit report, then you can rest assured to a certain extent that they won't be able to open up an account. And you also are going to be identified, you're going to be noted that's who it was or what company it was that has attempted to check your credit. Now, you can also unfreeze that if you're going out to buy a car or a house or another major purchase, and you're going to need to have your credit checked. You can unfreeze your credit for that particular time that you need that, and then you can freeze it again. So I just want you to be aware that, you know, the credit bureaus are being very, very flexible in regards to protecting your information. They're there as a service for us. Okay, all right, and all right, let's see. Order your credit report, and that's and I think with the information that which was sent out by the office, AAPR office, and what I've sent you, you can see there the annualcreditreport.com is a place that you can go to, and you can do that 3 times a year. Good to know. Here are the reporting agencies: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And there was some critical news. I think it was with Experian, who again they got hacked. And so their credit files were hacked. Fortunately, I think Experian reacted very, very well and offered some free services, and also some additional services for those who believed that their particular account had been hacked and been compromised. I had just frozen my credit about a month before. So when I called to ask, and they just told me, Mr. Rockwood, no one has gotten into your account. It would be hard for them to do that. Maybe you got a freeze on your account. But anybody would going in there, they'd find that that information is not available. Okay. And the thing is that you want to prevent someone from applying for and getting approval for your credit account or utility services in your name. Weird how this stuff. You can see these 3 ice cubes in the center here. Okay. Now this is the part of the presentation that I really do look forward to because, like I said, as a fraud fighter in Seattle for a couple of years, and then over here as well in Idaho, on calls from victims, is the main question that they've always asked me was, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what to do. I felt stunned and frozen. I like all of a sudden, my confidence went really straight down, and I was really afraid what was going on. And so I want you to know that there are resources out there, both at the AARP office here in Boise, as well as others. And I'm going to mention one called the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, because they have a booklet out there that I believe is the best resource that you can possibly have in not only identifying the problem that you may have, situation in terms of having your identity theft, but also a recovery plan. And so if you were to go online, it's one of those numbers that I have on my sheet, if you go to FTC, Federal Trade Commission, .gov, and if you wanted to add ID theft publications, you can. Or if you just go to ftc.gov scams or whatever, you go on there and you can enter, for a search, you can enter publications. And it will take you to a site where there is quite a group of different scams and frauds that you can get information free. Okay, so I want you to know that this booklet, it's about 30 pages or so in length, is free to you. And I believe the office in downtown Boise has samples of this, because I try to keep them stocked with about 50. I haven't been down there for 7 months. But I would suggest you go online, and there's also a phone number that you can call and order it as well. So this is the plan that I would really suggest that this booklet is what you get, and then get started. And this, whether or not you've had your identity stolen or not, you want this booklet handy, because when it happens, you'll be stunned. You'll almost be frozen in space, right? And I've seen this happen over again, and it's just really kind of crazy. And when my taxes had already been paid, the refund had already gone out, my wife and I were pretty like, God, what do we do now? And this book isn't a security blanket. It's nobody hugging you, but what it's providing you with is resources that you can act on now. And that's what you want to do. You want to act now. It gives you detailed advice to help you fix the problems. And that's what they are, they're problems. And it's going to take you some time to do all of this. And that's part of the being frozen it's all about. What this plan offers is a way for you to track your progress. It has pre-filled letters that you can send to credit card companies, banks, the police, all these different places, and forms that you can send to credit bureaus, businesses, and debt collectors. And they're well written. All you have to do is fill it in, and you're ready to go. So here are some steps to take if your identity is stolen. And I hope that you can read these. I tried to take these directly out of the booklet. But you need to notify the financial institution where the fraud activity occurred. In this case, it could be multiple places. You want to order your credit reports from each of the 3 credit bureaus. And you also want to tell them that you believe you've had your identity stolen. And you're going to want to place an initial fraud alert on your credit report. Okay? You haven't frozen it yet, okay? But you might want to do that too. But you want to put a fraud alert. And then you might also want to do that same fraud alert with your banks, your credit card companies, and anyone else you do business with, including if you purchase something from a business, say 180 days, same as cash, anything where you believe there is some credit behind it. You want to let them know. Just want to let them know. All the companies out there that you are doing business with are well versed in this whole process of identity theft. You want to create an identity theft report, which you can do using the FTC's, Federal Trade Commission's, recovery plan. And then you're going to want to review all of your credit report information for fraudulent information. And you want to do that, like I said, 3 times a year. And also, you can do the same thing with your credit card. You can call them anytime and ask, has there been any activity? And they'll say, no, sir, we've got you on an initial fraud alert, and there's been no activity. And then, of course, you're in the business of changing all your passwords. And you're probably in the business of changing all your credit cards. And not only your credit cards, but possibly your bank cards as well. I've done this several times. It takes time. But you can do this if you have a plan, right? And you can develop your own plan, but I really found that booklet to be an invaluable resource. More steps to recovery. This goes on and on. Estimated amount of time. I think that hour-wise, it's going to take somewhere between 30 and 60 hours of your time. I think it can take somewhere between 6 months and 12 months, maybe a little bit longer, depending how deep the identity theft has gotten. It's not fun, and it's a lot of work. But you want to change your logins, your passwords, and your PINs. The more you can change, the better. Then we get into this thing called reporting. Now, your reporting may have happened before this message, but you want to make sure that in your report that you have reported the ID theft to FTC and all the other agencies. And one of the things I've got written down here is contact the IRS. Yes, you can actually call the IRS. Unlike a scammer, they won't answer the phone on the second ring. So you might have to be on the phone for a little while waiting for them. And you want to notify the police. Now, I know that the police are only kind of interested in if you've had money stolen from you, or if there's, quote, I don't need to be offensive here, if there's blood on the scene. But I do want you to know that they will give you a case number. And you need that case number from the police in order to complete your ID theft report. Because that is the number that people and banks and all the other organizations are going to relate to. And if you look at some of the forms that you'll be filling out, it'll ask for a case number or ID theft report number. Okay, just want you to be aware of that. Now, your identity has been stolen. You have rights. You have rights. So what are they? Well, you have the right to create an ID theft report. It doesn't really help with what's been stolen, but you have a right to an ID theft report. In a lot of cases, when you start making these phone calls, particularly with credit cards, they will start turning them around. In other words, they'll start to give you refunds, or they'll just not honor the any credit card transactions up to a certain date. So that's one of the things that you want to do is just stop the credit card transactions and get a new credit card. Might put you out of business for a couple of days or a week, but it's going to be the best thing you can possibly do. Since I'm on that line about credit cards, I'm not a big fan of debit cards. I used to be. I used to buy everything with a debit card because I knew it was cash, and I could just deduct it immediately from my checking account. But that's the bad thing about it, or the downside. It's cash. So if you use a debit card and the ID thief has got a hold of that debit card and they know the PIN, they can get that, then that's cash. And it's really difficult to get that cash back. You can ask, and I think in most cases, banks, et cetera, will be honorable and do that for you. But it's just another layer of time that you have to do. Place a 1-year fraud alert on your credit reports. And you can also do this. You can place a 7-year extended fraud alert on your credit report. And please understand that this will have no effect on your credit rating. When I ask for a credit report from them based on my experience in terms of getting one every 4 months, get my 3 a year, there is no credit rating on there. Okay? I think I have to pay a little additional money if I want to get the credit rating. But I know that my credit rating is not affected by my freeze on my report. No, I'm not. So let's just take that off the plate. You want to get free copies of your credit report. These are as part of your rights. And you want to mention that you are a victim of identity theft. What will happen with the IRS if you're a victim of identity theft is that they will send you a PIN, P-I-N, in December every year with your new ID theft tax submission PIN number. Mine is about 6 digits long. It changes every year since 2012. I get anxious that I haven't received it when I get towards the end of December, but there it is. It pops up in December, and that's what I use because my old PIN number won't work, and that is a layer of protection that lets me sleep at night. It's really kind of good. Now you can ask for a PIN without having your identity stolen. I think it works the same way. So if you want to do that, you can, and that will give added protection for your tax return or whoever does your tax return for you. You just have to have faith in your tax preparer, as we do. That's the only time they're going to use it, and they're bound by their oath, which is kind of nice. And you also have the right to have fraudulent information removed from your credit report. And this takes some time. This is what takes some time because they have to do some investigating and understand what I said at the beginning. Our government, in their wisdom, I'm not saying being critical necessarily, they have cut the IRS budget of investigations by more than a third by now. And so it makes it very difficult for them not only to do audits, but also to do investigations about identity theft, particularly in regards to taxes. And so you have to be very diligent, and unfortunately, we have to do the work. Oh, there are more rights. Let's go on here. Okay, so more good news. All right. So you need to dispute these fraudulent and inaccurate information on your credit report. And you can do that by writing them. You can do that online. You can pick up the telephone and call them. I probably prefer the call because they can look at my report at the same time I'm talking to them. Now, I have to give them some information, which is really difficult for me to do. I have to give them my social security number, which is kind of hard to come out of my mouth, but I do. I give them that and then some other information so they can confirm that I am me. You'll have to do the same thing in putting a credit freeze out there or even getting your credit report. So just want you to be aware of that. And it's not a bad thing. I like to think that we have to have some faith in some of these organizations, okay? So nothing's free, I guess. Okay, and then you have the right to stop creditors and debt collectors from reporting fraudulent accounts. And that's why this plan really, I think, is helpful because it'll give you some sample letters of how to write these creditors. And they have to honor these, and they have to recognize that you are in the straits of having your identity stolen. And they have to stop reporting fraudulent accounts because all this stuff kind of really hits your credit rating, and it'll hit it pretty fast. And so you want those gone, and you want to report it gone, right? So that's going to mean some follow-up on your part. And then you'll start a file. They'll start out with nothing in it. File, whether it's like a real file, I'm thinking of a paper file, it'll have nothing in there. And I think by the time you're done, it probably will be maybe an inch thick. And these will be copies of everything that you've made copies of, you sent out. And you might want to put this in sort of date order or organizational order so that you have ready access to that file. And at any point in time, when you're on the telephone, you might want to have that file with you. I think one of the most powerful things is to have the debt collector stop calling you. And because every time the phone rings, your heart's going to go up to your mouth, thinking it's a debt collector. And it might be so unless they have stopped contacting you. And that again goes to the report. It goes back to your identity theft report. And these folks should stop calling you. Understand that many of these folks are paid by what they collect. Okay, so they have no concern about you. or the debt, other than they will have some kind of commission based on what the debt is. So freeze your credit. Recovery from ID theft requires a ton of work and action. And I'm so sorry and empathetic if you have found yourself or one of your loved ones or somebody you know has had to go through this process. I've gone through it twice, so I have all the empathy in the world. And I just know that AARP is got your back with tons of information, lots of different workshops, both nationally and locally here. An organization that I think can help get you prepared is Fraud Watch Network. And again, that's on the pages, one of the numbers on the page that I've sent you is there to help. You don't have to be a member of AARP, although I encourage you to do that. I think there's a $16 dues on it. I'm not in the business of soliciting for membership, but I have found the membership, I resisted it. That was the first thing starting at the age 50 that went straight into the mail. Our mail went straight into the recycle. It was all the solicitation. I didn't even open it up. But then finally a friend told me, you are missing out on at least $20 worth of savings in there. So I said, oh, okay. And what I found, particularly when I started working with fraud, is that there's an article that they sent out their news magazine. There's at least one article every month on fraud. And they're very helpful, they're very informative. And right now on the national program, I know that AARP has what they call scam jams and works, whether it's locally or nationally. They've got some scam Zoom calls on, and you can sort of Zoom yourself with fraud until you're tired of Zooming. But the Federal Trade Commission has the tools to help you get prepared and protect yourself from ID theft. It really does. And I really recommend that you go to the ftc.gov site and cruise around there. And if you have a particular scam that you are interested in learning about or hearing about or trying to protect yourself from, they'll have it there. They've got them all. And there's these in the list. At one point in time, I'd gotten up to about 39 scams that are out there that they've got some really good information. And they'll have some videos for you to look at if you're interested in looking at videos. So we have covered a ton of material. Let's see, I think we may have some time left. Ah, we do. We still got some time left. Great. Time to take collected information already. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to get out of this. One more. This is my thank you slide. I want to thank you for joining us. It's a lot of things I go over, and I talk a lot. As a teacher, I know I shouldn't do that. I should have had some stops in here, but there was just so much information to go, and I wanted you to at least hear most, if not all, of that. I do live in Boise. I am an AARP volunteer, essentially working with fraud as much as I can with them. They've got a lot of other definitely really wonderful volunteer jobs out there, positions. But this booklet that I've got up here on this last slide, again, is the book that you want to have. It's really, really good. AARP Boise has other materials on fraud, different kind of scams that I'm sure if you call their office, and I don't have that number on here, but I think I may have it on that sheet, they'd be happy to either send one out to you. And if you're interested in a fraud presentation, you can contact them as well. And I'm looking forward to the time when we can meet all of you in person. That's always kind of nice. I did this event a couple of years ago in the basement of their office in downtown Boise. And that was nice to see people. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of this and stop sharing and see if I can answer anything you want me to elaborate on, if that's possible, if we have questions. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you. Oh, Bethany's got that up there. That's good. She got the link up there. That's great. Okay, so I'll stop talking. Boop, I'm done. And I'll listen. And then, again, try to answer any questions you have. You can put those in the chat if you want. Or I think we can trust everybody to, if you can unmute yourself, I believe. I set that up that way. So that you can unmute yourself if you wanted to. I just want to thank you for keeping yourself muted during the presentation. because it's helpful. Although if it was a live presentation, I'd love you to interrupt me. That was always kind of nice, because generally I don't lose my place. So I'll just stop talking.
Thank you, Dennis. It looks like Kathy just put a question in the chat. So Kathy, if you want to unmute, you can go ahead and share, or I'll also read what you said. But she just said, I have a question about obtaining free credit report. Can this be done online? What is the process, and is it safe to put the Social Security number out there?
Yeah, Kathy, it's a great question. And for everybody, there are probably a couple who've already done this process. I did it about 6 years ago, particularly after the IRS scam on me. And so I just want you to know that, oh, I got another question. But I want you to know, yes, you can do that online. In the material that we sent you by email, I hope you got it. Did you get that, Kathy? I sent out one, and I know that home office, not home office, but the office downtown sent you one as well. Theirs has on their second page of that particular document, the document is called Identity Theft and Scams, Reducing Your Exposure. And on the second page of that, I thought was really helpful because it goes into a little more detail than I've spent on it. It has got freezing your credit, and your question wasn't about freezing your credit. Your question was about how do I obtain a free credit report? Well, the other sheet that I sent you, let's see, yes, the other page I sent you has the same information, but it also has the information about getting a free one. And so getting a free credit report is really simple. You can go online. You can go online to, annual credit report. It's got down here, it allows you to get a free copy. It's www.annualcreditreport.com. Now, once you get on there, you're going to be asking for a free credit report. And sorry to say this, but they're going to ask you for your Social Security number. And they're trying to identify you as you. So there is a degree of trust that you have to have in asking for this. Same with freezing your credit. Again, they want to make sure that they're doing the right person the service, and so yes, I think it's not the only thing. I think you have to put your name, address, phone number, and Social Security on that. So that's the process. You can do it online, or you can call, and the phone numbers are there. And I believe, yes, the one sheet that came out of the office of downtown Boise also gave you their website number, so you can go on their website. And again, there's got to be a small degree of trust there. And I have to say that I do trust these three. They're the official credit reporting agencies. So if you were to go out and buy a car, you could ask the dealer what credit report agency they're using. And I'm quite sure that they're going to be mentioning Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. They'll be using one of them, if not more. And usually car dealerships probably just go with one. And if the report is not favorable to your credit rating, then they'll probably go to another. They're going to try very hard to make you qualified. And that's only to get a credit rating. Credit reports, credit freezing have nothing to do with one's credit rating. So they don't care if you have a 300 rating or an 840 rating. It makes no difference. You can freeze it. So I hope that's helpful. But yeah, is it safe to put Social Security out there? There are going to be some times when you are working with companies that they'll be asking you for that information. What you want to know and want to believe in is that the number that you have and the person you talk to are who they are. And so that's where that leap of faith comes in a little bit. So I would say, yes, you can trust them. And if you have any questions about that, you can call Bethany. No,
Yes.
Just kidding. Okay.
I was also going to say to everyone, just before you leave, if you're able to, in the chat, there is, like Dennis talked about at the beginning, there is a link that you can click on just to evaluate this course and just overall how it went, so we know how we can improve. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great. And then Dennis, did you see Jane's comment too?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that statement, Jane, about the question was, they tried to order the booklet, your plan by the FTC, and apparently they found out that they're not sending now because of COVID. Well, as you probably could guess, I haven't asked for one to be sent in a long time. I do know, and I'm not sure, I'm not sure if the office down, I may ask Bethany. Bethany, is the office downtown open at all?
No, we are not. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't been there since,
Okay.
I think March.
Would anybody be there to mail something?
Mm-mm,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Well, geez. Jane, I wish I could send you one. In fact, yeah, I don't know really how to answer that question, other than I would recommend you go online. Let me ask you, Jane, are you still there?
Oh, I think she might have just left, actually.
She did? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to tell everybody, you might want to, you go online and see if you can order it, maybe to put it on back order. And I'd order 10 copies. And so that you'll have one for yourself, and order some for, then you'd have them, you can hand them out for Christmas presents or something, holiday presents or whatever, Halloween. It doesn't make any difference because everyone's going to need a plan, and most everybody will be scammed sometime in their short life. And so I'm very surprised that the FTC is not mailing, but maybe not. Amazon's mailing. Geez. Okay, but anyway, you want to order this book. That's going to be very helpful. Another way of doing this, again, you can go online. Oh, Shane was there. It just popped in my head. If you go online and you go to FTC and you look for the plan, in my recovery plan, you're going to find that they have it online. The pages aren't exactly the same as the booklet, but the information is very useful, and they will have suggested letters, and they will have all these things, how to make out a report, how to fill out the report, they'll have that. And then if you want to, if you have the ability with a printer, you can print the pages you want. And that's another way of having that plan in front of you. Okay, and I think you can probably either save that website or share that link with other people. I would encourage you to do that, because one of the answers to all of these scams and frauds, particularly identity theft, is to talk about it. That's the biggest thing we've got. You're the army. You're the soldiers in the field that can beat these things. And the only way we're going to put these folks in jail, and throw away the key, is for us to report them. And they've got to be reported. When they go unreported, it's like a crime of place no one knows about. So reporting these things are as important as anything else. So we tried to order the booklet. Yeah, you can find the booklet online. And I was just taking you to the publications because I figured that might be the easiest way. But they do have it online, and you can look at it page to page, read it, and then save that site. So, it's 32 pages. You may not want to read it all at once. But if you save it someplace, you've got it. And that's, for me, that's the most important thing you have is, where is the plan? What is the plan? And it makes no difference whether or not you're going through a romance scam or a charity scam or any of the other scams, a grandparent scam. It doesn't make any difference what scam that you may have experienced or heard about, having a plan to what to do. In most of the cases, these scams, where it's not necessarily taking all of your information like the identity theft, you have time once you get off the phone to breathe. Because understand, if you get a phone call and you've identified it as possibly a scam call, your best recourse is just to hang up. If you get on your computer and your computer comes up and it's frozen with a statement saying, don't shut down your computer. You know, whatever you do, call this phone number. Okay, that's another phone call. That's all it is. All right. So how do you hang up your computer? You just shut it down and then reboot it, and all of a sudden you'll find, oh, it's gone. You just hung up on a scammer. Yay! That's really good. So understand that the scams work pretty much the same way. They're all going to ask you for your money at one point in time, and they're going to ask you to send the money in some really strange ways. But I want you to know that we'd think that common sense would create a situation where no one would ever get scammed. Well, it's a $50 billion industry, folks. You know, that's with a B. So there's enough of us out there, you know, and whether it's something that you fell into, something that you bought on, you're the victim, you know. I've never fallen for one over the phone or anything, but I was a victim twice. I don't think it's necessarily my fault. It wasn't my fault that somebody broke into my gym locker. So I want you to know you're the victim. You're not the criminal. And we need to share these things, whether it's happened to yourself or with someone else. Please, please share it with your family and your friends and your neighborhood. And most importantly, keep your social networks up to speed. Talk with your families. If you have a place where you worship, it's a great conversation piece. If you have small groups to get together nowadays, you know, socially distancing and things, what a great topic they bring up. Has anybody here had this particular scam situation? And you're going to find that either one person has had it there, or they'll talk about somebody else who has. And you'll have a 2-hour conversation. You'll never have to get out of that. That's happening more often before the pandemic. You know, I go to a social occasion while having a glass of wine, and people want to know what I do, and I will mention that, and all of a sudden, I can't get out of the conversation because they're starting to mention all these things. So it's a fun topic to talk about. It's a very serious topic, and I just want you to have the opportunity not to be a victim or to help others.
Dennis, it looks like Helen Young has a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you read it yet, but she said, I froze my 3 credit bureau accounts in 2013 and 2015, have not opened them since then. I have passwords and numbers for each bureau. The contact numbers to phone them have changed to access years ago. You had to pay a fee. Is this no longer necessary? And then follow-up question to that was also, do they need my freeze number and username and passwords?
Great statement and question. I love it. I'm proud of you. God, 2013, that's wonderful. It was just, I think freezing credit was probably just getting talked about. It wasn't even on my radar at that time. But you did it in 13 and 15. You haven't opened since. I froze mine a couple of years ago. I haven't opened mine yet. I want you to know that the phone numbers that you have, both on the sheet that came from the office downtown Boise, as well as mine, which came yesterday on the back side, those numbers are real and they are active. And so, yes, you'd probably, let me see, to access them, you probably have to put some information in there so they can prove, to let you in, that who you are. And you can do that either by online or on a phone call. And that's, you know, you have to have a little leap of faith here. Also, do they need my freeze number and username and password? Well, I just read something about, you know, have your account number and then your PIN number available. Hell, I forgot my PIN number about 6 months after I put that in. So they will need to verify you in some other way. But if you're interested in making sure that you have frozen still there, they probably are. If you wanted to check, that's the way you're going to have to check. They'll probably have to have your social security number and some other pieces of key information for you. And you may want to set up a new password and username at the same time you're getting out there. So if you're still using passwords and usernames from 2013, they may be well overdue to have some changes on there. And you probably have changed on some of them. But I wish luck on that. I just think that I'm proud of you for getting involved with the credit unions and trusted them to freeze your credit. And I hope this worked out for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have about 5 more minutes until this session is set to close. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or like Dennis said, you can always unmute as well. And if you're able to, again, we would really appreciate you just taking the survey that's in the chat. It's just a link, and it helps us know what we can do better. So thanks.
I do think that the office will probably let everybody know that they're open. And so if you're unable to get this plan book now, and you're having difficulty finding it online, which you shouldn't, as soon as you hear that they're open, get down there and get it. Because I know that I know they've got, you must have at least 50 of them down there, I think. When I order them for ARP, and I think Pam also down there would order them for us. She would order the quantity of 50 at a time, which is really good. And they were surprised that they didn't have to pay any postage.
Yes.
You know, it's one of I really think it's one of the things that our government does really well. It's the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, because they do try pretty hard to act out their role fairly and for everybody. They're there for us. This is good.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis and everyone. Dennis, are you good to close unless anyone has any other questions or statements or anything?
Well, I can hang in there for another 2 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
If there's room in the evaluation, I don't know, I'll be doing my first evaluation on the next one that's coming up here that I have interest in, which is the Medicare 2021. If there's something that that I could do better, I'd really like to know. I'm a teacher, so I'm into improving as much as I can. I really like to have interactive conversations, but I wasn't sure that this particular topic was going to lend itself to that as well as some others. I'm also taking an OSHA class on that I'm taking online, but I'm taking it as a they were able to save it, and so I'm part of the group that can look at it anytime, and it happens to be very appropriate to what's going on in our country right now. And the title of it's called "A Republic, If You Can Keep It." So it's about the Constitution, and there's 4 parts, and I just finished part 2 last night. And the presenter, excellent presenter, did it in I think in February or March. Yeah, maybe it's February, March. And so I'm looking at it in October, and it's just absolutely dead on. Okay, so once you have time to complete that survey, you are free to have a great day out there. I think I see a little sun shining out there.
I think it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. It's always coming here. And wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to try to wait until people fall off here.
Yeah, I'll wait. I'll wait too. But yes, thank you.